came on board about 7 or 8 months into my tenure, is we launched with at that point Chief Judge, Federal Judge John McCollum, a reentry and drug court. And what that is we are trying, understanding that nearly 6 out of every 10 young men and women that go through the system, that they're going to come back to called recidivists into the system. But what we're finding now with the reentry court and the drug court is that we're able to find individuals before their parole, oftentimes 18 to 24 months before their parole. And a lot of times people hear reentry, they automatically assume, well, get me a job. I don't want to come back, find me a job, and, so I don't come back and reoffend. And that's a part of it, but what we found to be more meaningful is when we have individuals that they have some skin in the game. To say, hey, we will help you find those resources. And it's not just finding a job, but oftentimes as a felon, it's tough to even have housing. It's tough to get a job. It's tough with a number of things. So we're able to kind of stand in the gap, but we want to make sure that those individuals have some skin in the game. So what happens is we open the doors, and again, this is not for your hardened criminals. Those that commit the most egregious acts, they will feel the full weight and force of the federal government. But those individuals who have made a mistake or are looking for a second chance, we're able to put them into and let them enroll in it. And so what they do is they agree that we will submit to drug testing. We will submit to learning a trade before we get out of prison. And so instead of shooting basketball for 4 or 5 hours a day, they're learning the trade, whether it's cutting hair, whether it's electrician or laying cable wires or welding and things of that nature. And so we're not waiting until 6 weeks before they get out and that they're paroled. But oftentimes it's 12 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. And so there's a kind of a give and take, and there is, they have a vested interest. And what we find is some individuals are not serious. They'll start off and say that they're interested in the program, the reentry court, where there is a little bit more supervision and accountability. But oftentimes we find those individuals that really want that second chance and deserve that second chance. And so we're finding, not only here in Memphis, but I have a second office in the federal court in Jackson, courthouse in Jackson. And so we're finding some successes there. Diversion, that's something that my predecessors, and again, every U.S. attorney and administration, they have their own policies, but that's something that I brought back to the federal court. I was told, well, we're the feds and we don't offer diversion in federal cases. And while I would be the first to agree that every person that comes along with a sad song and a violin says, I need diversion, it's not necessarily the case. But I think it's a tool in the toolbox, we should use it. So that's something that we have been doing, is offering diversion for those cases that are appropriate. Certainly we have guidelines, and I can tell you, I don't know, we've had 40 or 50 cases, 50 plus cases since I've been U.S. attorney that we've granted diversion, meaning that you get that second chance, that you will not have a felony on your record if you go back and do what's required of you. Now, diversion on the state side, state court, that's somewhat commonplace, but it used to be pretty rare in federal court. And what I found, we've only had one individual that had offended and violated the diversion agreement, but otherwise we've had individuals who've taken advantage of that second chance. And again, that's just another element of being smart on crime. We have changed the paradigm as it relates to nonviolent drug charges. I mean, for years, back in the 80s and 90s, that was a going thing that you could get, and we all know the disparity. At one point it was, it took 100 times more cocaine than crack cocaine, the disparity of 1 to 100 to get the same amount of time. Under Attorney General Holder's administration, that ratio has been reduced to about 14, 17 to 1, still not 1 to 1, but the reality is we knew who was selling crack cocaine and we knew who was using the more expensive powder cocaine. But what we've done is we've been able to focus less, less on mandatory minimums. I mean, if you had if you were just a drug dealer and you were on the street corners peddling, whether it's marijuana or cocaine, you got 3 of those charges, no matter pretty much even if they were small amounts, you were looking at what's called mandatory minimums. Mandatory minimums. 15 years up to life in prison, in federal prison. As many of you all probably know, there's no parole in the federal system. So unlike on the state side, if you get 15 years, you pretty much do 15 years with maybe 10, 15% credit for good time. But that is a tremendous, and so that we saw the confines of the federal prisons across the country in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s swell because of this federal hammer that many of our offices had. Just because we would lock up for a very limited amount of time nonviolent drug dealers. One of the mandates now on Smart on Crime is that we're not doing it. Now, let me be clear, we're not being soft on crime, and again, those individuals that are out there that are tied to gangs, that are, again, moving, a lot of weight, again, those individuals that deserve the time, but just because we can and just because someone is caught with a very minimal amount without any violence attached to the amount of drugs, that's something we're taking a different approach as to prosecuting. My philosophy, quite frankly, has been the worst of the worst on the criminal side, whether it's white collar, whether it's, in fact, just finished giving a press release out today. There was a doctor pharmacist that was sentenced to 16 years that was illegally dispensing prescription drugs. And as I stated in the press release, that he's no different than the young man that's selling crack cocaine on the corner. It's illegal, and he needs to be held accountable. And again, Judge Collins sentenced him to 16 years in federal prison. So whether in this case you can't hide behind a white lab jacket or a degree or letters in front of behind your name. So we continue to do that. But as it relates to our juveniles and our youth, and I'll wrap up and I'll open it up for questions. I think that it's just a matter of, and I heard Dr. Stewart say something, 3 tenets: engage the family, making sure the juveniles are getting their needs met, and making sure their voice is heard. And I would submit, and I'm encouraged when I see just many individuals around this room. Donnie, we've worked together for years when I was in the city attorney's office, and great work you guys are doing, is to be that same village that I had when I grew up in South Memphis, in Whitehaven, or Black Haven, whatever you want to call it. But it really was a village, the neighbors, and it's just amazing now, even now, how I heard someone says that nothing stops a bullet like a job. I mean, and having our youth to get engaged and involved is amazing. There's probably not a week or so that goes by that I'm not in the school that's talking to kids. And you know, first thing I say, what do you want to do when you grow up without buildings? You know, I want to be an NBA player, I want to be an NFL, I want to be an NBA. And while there's nothing wrong with that, I think the same way that I was exposed over at Alton Elementary and Bellevue Junior High School and coming up in the public school system, that there are other acronyms that we can learn, such as you can get an MBA. You can go to school and get an MD and be a medical doctor, doctor of jurisprudence, a JD, or you could be a CPA. And so we've got, and I say we, it really does. It takes a holistic approach, Bishop, that again, it's what I got in Sunday school, it's what I got in Vacation Bible School, it's what I got when I got out of the line, down the street, around the corner. And many of you all, parents, we've got to get actively more engaged than we have been, because it's just amazing how I see, again, it pains me, again, I'm going to do my job, it pains me to see just young men and women that are going down the wrong path and have phenomenal minds. You look at some of the schemes, I will even say now the gang